This is Theory of Change. I'm Matthew Sheffield. Thanks for joining me for another episode. Before we get to today's program, I just wanted to mention that Theory of Change is part of the Flux Media Network. So go to flux.community for more podcasts and articles about politics, culture, media, and technology and how they all affect each other. And if you want to get more episodes of this program, just go to theoryofchange.show where you can get the video, audio, and transcript of all the episodes. And if you're a paid subscribing member, thank you very much for your support. You have complete access to all of the archives, and I appreciate that very much. All right, so with that out of the way, let's get into today's program. If you turn on the news on your phone, your TV, or whatever else, invariably, you will see that the radical Christian right is advancing policies on a daily basis to control other people's lives and to foist their ridiculous religious dogmas on everyone else. And they do that through policies like banning abortion, banning birth control, banning pornography, or banning books that they think are insufficiently pure or insufficiently deferential to their beliefs. Now, obviously, their religious dogmas play a big role in that and trying to force everybody to live them. But it isn't the only reason that they're doing this. It's also, they don't want people to experience other ways of thinking and other ways of feeling. If other people are allowed to choose, they won't choose the radical Christian right beliefs. And my guest on today's episode knows a lot about all of that. Her name is Sinn Sage. She is an adult film actress and has been in the industry for a number of years. And she has a lot to say about this topic and many others. One of the reasons why I wanted to talk to you is that you are so political and you're so smart and you know so much about where your industry is positioned in society as a whole.
Yeah.
But do you ever feel like that you're kind of alone in that regard, or you wish people knew more or were more active in trying to preserve and advocate for themselves? Is that something you've thought about? Is that part of why you started your podcast? I don't know. That's a lot of questions there. So you can.
No, you're good. No, I will say that is not part of why I started my podcast, to sort of activate people, or people in my own industry, not so much. To activate society at large, to be like, see, I've felt strongly, there are lots of times, I think, as a performer, you come up with a platform. Once you realize you have a platform, right? Once you realize I've got this many people following me on these many different social media platforms, paying attention to what I say, you have to decide for yourself, how am I going to use that? And I'm not going to judge anyone for making the choice to use their platform just to make an income. Like, that is your fucking choice. And you do not have to be engaged with this stuff. That's a big thing a lot of us sex workers say in general, is like, get your bag. Like, I'm not mad at you for it. So I don't feel like this sense of like, wow, why can't I pull more of you into this? I'm just like, I can only speak for myself. But when I looked around and I saw the size of my platform and I saw how passionately I feel, especially about queer issues, and as years have gone on, how like the fight is here and I need to be engaged with it. Like, I need to be a part of it, as my goal is queer people and sex worker total liberation. I don't want any of this hate. I don't think we deserve it. But so that was a conscious choice that I made. And there have even been times where I'm just like, maybe I should just like pull back on this a little bit. And, maybe then like I'd make a little more money and I'd be a little more stable or something. Especially in 2016, that was really rough. And my Twitter account was at over $300,000. And ever since 2016, 300,000 followers, sorry. And ever since 2016, I've dropped down to like 298 or something, and I've never gone back up over 300. So that's something that made me be like, is this something what I want to do? Like I also received a few few emails from people who were like, I want to order a custom video where you wear a Trump hat and then shit gets dumped on your head and stuff like this, because, you know, they're just so loving over there on that side of things. But real Christ-like. But so I saw some of that like direct backlash to, and I also got caught up. Fucking no doubt. Like I was definitely caught up. I deleted my Facebook account in 2018 because it was like people that I grew up with, being friends with, we're on Facebook and just like fighting and saying these really horrible things about each other. And I was like, you know what? And a number of things. It's the way I saw certain people using Facebook, and I just think
it's just filled with so much. Yeah, like I hate Facebook.
It's like, awful. So I got rid of that account. Yes, cesspool, awful cesspool. So is Twitter. But the difference is, I figured this out kind of recently, is that like on Facebook, it's all your friends and family. On Twitter and Instagram and all these, it's a lot. It's mainly strangers. And so,
and a lot of them like you, you know.
Oh yeah, and so doing it and so having these opinions, and a lot of people agree with me, when a lot of people think differently from me, but they still appreciate hearing the things that I say. And I've even had people say, I used to think this way. I listened to everything you were saying. I saw how much sense it made, and I sort of changed the way I think about it. And I was like, Jesus Christ, I'm doing it. It's happening. But it's like that. So when I think about what, you know, one of the aspects that really motivated me to make my podcast, it was more about using my platform in the ways to uplift these people, these specific people, sex workers, especially. So sex workers and queer people is huge in my podcast because I want to normalize and humanize. I want to normalize conversations around sex and sex work and queerness, and I want to humanize sex workers and queer people. And I think that like the format that I use of my podcast is, it lends itself to that. I think a lot of that is going on, and I think like if people just stumble across it and find it, and maybe their mind is flexible enough to hear some of the things that we talk about and recognize the issues on a societal aspect. The other thing about the question that you had asked me is that like in my community of sex workers, they are pretty activated, you know, not all of them. Like I said, that's fine, but a lot of them. And that's probably why like I am friends with them.
Well, that's why that's what it's you like them because they agree with you.
But I mean, not
they
just
should.
they agree.
But they should.
But they should. Not just that they agree with me, but that they are also activated in the same way. That they are also, you know, advocates for these things. And like someone that I met in Vegas, Summer Hart, like she's just so smart. So she is like a body I would gulp out of clay. I mean, she's totally natural. She's got huge titties and a big round ass and the small little waist. I mean, she's just beautiful, and she's stunning to look at and like very successful. But she's also so fucking smart that like, honestly, there's so many times that I'm like, I can say all of these things, but then I start firing up like the limbic part of my brain and I get like real confused because I'm just too passionate about it. I'm like, go talk to Summer because she is just so fucking well-spoken and she's such a good activist about these things. And she has actually like gone to the fucking state legislators and had meetings and tried to like get them to understand what sex trafficking really is and like what the policy should be when sex workers are arrested on the streets of Vegas and stuff, and that it shouldn't, you know, we want to do harm reduction, not put them in a worse place. She's actually gotten to have seats at the table in these places. And so she runs SWAID, which is sex worker mutual aid. And people can apply for micro grants through SWAID. Sex workers can. And this is a nationwide program. She's got Plan B. She's got fentanyl test kits. She's got fentanyl, or not fentanyl, sorry, the Narcan. And these, all of these various things, and she's just like passionate about getting it out to people, and just, man, such a good activist. And so So yeah, people like that, I tend to be more, I guess, drawn to. Like we have a personal friendship, beyond beyond work. So I do see a lot of that.
Well, that's good. Yeah. Did you catch that little incident that was involving Brandi Love and that right-wing conference a couple of years ago? Did you see that?
Oh, so
Do you know her?
I did not see that, but if I find out that a performer is MAGA, like they are on my no list, I won't follow them, and I don't want to have anything to do with them. So I was aware of that. I had people say, I want to put you in a scene with this person. And I was like, nope, I'm doing okay on my own. I don't need to be in a scene, and I will not work with that person. Like, there's just so much self-delusion going on there, mainly with the fact that, like, I don't care. Republicans are trying to stop porn. They have let the evangelicals take over that party 100%. And their number one goal is to take away rights from women over their own bodies. They want abortion ban over the whole country. Does not care how many children get raped.
Marriage.
They do not want queer people to get married. And it's like, especially what really makes me fucking almost the most angry is like, these women perform in girl scenes. You're performing lesbian acts on camera for money. So you're totally cool to exploit that aspect of it for your own personal gain. But when it comes to like the rights of these people in this country, you could give a fuck. You do not care at all. And so like that part of it blows my mind. And then the part of it where it's like, you think that you're going to be the special one that like gets to go ahead and keep making porn and keep living the lifestyle that you live. No, they will throw you in a fucking camp too. Like, they will throw you in jail when they implement their Project 2025 bullshit, when they make porn illegal. You read it right there in black and fucking white exactly what they want to do. They want to criminalize porn. They want to jail pornographers. And you're out there waving your MAGA flag. Like, the cognitive dissonance it's staggering, the level there.
Yeah.
And those are the same people that will just say, they'll be like, oh, that's not going to happen. Well, like, do you know how many people said that about Roe versus Wade? Like, everyone was saying that, no, they'll never do that. It'll be fine. Now we live in a world where fucking 10-year-olds get impregnated by their dad and can't get abortions. Like, and you're fucking okay with this? I'm sorry. Like,
and you're going for that party,
and you want that. You are going to go in that voting booth and vote for that motherfucker. Like, man. I tried to like not that, like in these situations, I'm down if I'm like, let's fucking talk about it. Let's do it. But I have to really try hard to live my life with peace. So I feel like I'm very constantly always walking this tightrope where it's like on one side, I'm so fucking outraged by all of this stuff. And I feel like such a passionate drive towards activism. And then on the other side of this tightrope, it's like, man, I just want to be happy. I just want to live in peace. And the media and my goddamn phone is just constantly trying to like get me enraged and get me like responding and boosting the algorithm and stuff. And it's like, it's really difficult to find a place to find that place of peace, to sort of disattach from reality and remember that, like what's real, like not I'll be dead and none of this will have mattered, but I'm here now and it fucking matters. So I'm like constantly.
Yeah. Well, it makes sense. And Steve Bannon, when he first came in as Trump's chief of staff, I guess White House advisor, he said that their goal was to flood the media zone with shit, as he put it. And for a very good reason, because like they want people who are normal and affirming and progressive They want you to see all this shit and be so disgusted by it that you're just like, oh, I cannot deal with this awful shit anymore. I'm turning off. I'm tuning out. I'm dropping out. And, and that's how they win, because like
you're right.
Americans, they don't want this shit. They don't
want
to criminalize abortion. They don't want to criminalize birth control. They don't want to have mandatory prayer in school. They don't want they want their porn, like they want their marijuana. Like, this is what most people want. And, but the right wing can only do this by getting people to just be so disgusted and turning out and just like, oh, it's just too awful. I can't handle it. I can't handle it.
Yeah. And I do
figuring out how to do that. Yeah. So figuring out, how to be like, well, this is awful, but I exist in my own space, and it is a positive space where I am around me. I feel like that's the ticket. And, as much as you can, cutting out personal drama and people who create problems for you in your life. Cause you don't need to deal with shit. If you have a relative that won't leave you alone, or, a neighbor that just pisses you off all the time, then don't talk to them.
No, it's totally okay. It's beyond okay. Like, you don't, I don't think a lot of times I really don't think that like engaging in arguments with people who are on the other side of your political beliefs. I think we've reached this stage politically as a nation where I don't think that is productive even. I think it's like you are just you're just talking to talking to a brick wall. You're literally just like bashing your head into a brick wall. Now there are people that I know, a couple who are just like, gosh, I kind of feel like, he's like Elon Musk is doing these good things, right? And I'm just like, okay, I can understand. I used to feel like that way too when he was first coming up and he's like renewable energy. And I'm like, yes. Then he made like $150 billion and a lot of things changed. And I'm like, and now I can explain to you step by step, like the way he's gone downhill, but also his origins, which you might think are one thing, but they are the opposite of that thing. And
and like that patience and that care for people who are like that, like that's fantastic. Like we need more of that, because sometimes I do feel like the progressives, we have our own little world, and when we see somebody who isn't familiar with the news stories or the issues, it's just, it's easy to, because I mean, there are a lot of shitheads out there, but at the same time, there are a lot of people who don't know. They just simply do not know. And those people need to be talked to in a compassionate and thoughtful way.
And that's part of it too. When you come back with anger and just being like, no, you're wrong. That's not going to convince anybody either. It does have to be this like, let me ask you this question. Do you struggle to pay rent? How much is your health insurance? Do you have it? Okay, let's think about like the reasons behind these issues in your life. Are you going to blame the person with absolutely zero power who maybe a nickel of your taxes goes to help give them food stamps to pay to feed their kids? Is that the person that you're really mad at? Or is it like the billionaire who is just working to take away union rights, and the multi-million-dollar CEO of a health insurance company who wants to make really sure that that you have to pay $1,500 a month to get the insurance, but if you have an emergency, they're going to find every reason possible to make sure that they don't have to pay for it. I mean, it's just, who should you be mad at? The person with zero power, or the person owning all the institutional power of this entire fucking country? Like, can I just say they're building a goddamn train on the moon? How much? Billions of dollars, so we can't have health care, but you can build a fucking train on the moon?
get some priority. Yeah. No. So, okay. So, but just for you said you hadn't heard about the incident that Brandi had.
Oh, please tell me. Yes. No, please.
So the thing with Brandi is, so this happened in 2021. And I wish it had blown up more because it's so hilarious. So she is, as you know, super MAGA, and also Christian as well, which I didn't quite understand. And so anyway, so she bought tickets to Charlie Kirk's, one of his Christofascist rallies.
Yeah.
And she showed up with a couple of her, I guess her, assistants or who knows what. Anyway, so they were just wandering around. And then that Nick Fuentes Nazi guy, he had his people at the conference and they spotted her. And of course, they all know who she is because, she's super famous. And of course, they all watch her and everybody else.
Of course.
And so they knew exactly who it was. And they started like posting on social media about, oh, Charlie Kirk has invited this satanic slut into a conference of children. Look at this asshole. And so then they filtered back to Charlie and he kicked her out of the conference.
Like came down, found her, asked her to leave.
Well, not him personally. Yeah, he had her
sent his people
to remove her. Yeah, and she was not doing anything, pornographic.
No, she was just walking around, being
wearing a dress, and not even showing any real. If I remember right, I don't think she even showed much of any cleavage at all.
Oh, I doubt it. Yeah.
And so she was just wondering, and and they kicked her out, and she was so angry about it. And I'm just gonna pull up what she had said about it. And
oh my gosh,
I tried to talk to her about it.
Really,
she did not engage with me at all. And I thought that she might, because like a bunch of people who work in porn follow me. So, and it's because like when somebody replies to you, it says so and so follows this person, right?
Yeah.
And so like you can see if this is a person that would be relevant to you potentially, that I'm not just some shithead on the internet.
You're not just a Twitter guy.
Yeah, a reply guy. Wait, hold on, here we go. Actually, hold on, I'm gonna put the thing of this article so you can see it. Or right here. And it has the shirt that she was wearing, but you can. It's literally the most tamest V-neck T-shirt.
Oh yeah, totally. Gigantic honkers. So like it's I get this a lot with my ass sometimes, where I'm like, I'm not even dressed egregiously, but people are treating me like I'm dressed insane. I'm like, my ass.
Well, it's also I do think that women's bodies are thought of as community property in some sense.
Of course.
And so anyway, so she got very angry, and this is what she said. It's a Trojan horse. If I had known it was going to behave and feel like a religious cult, I would have never gone. It's not a central message in their mission. I love God and I hate organized religion. And it's like, maybe
she's got a personal relationship.
Yeah. Jesus is her pal or some shit like that.
But like I read there too. I caught a little bit of that article, and it's like that some mothers were like made aware of who she was, the pornographic nature of her lifestyle or whatever. And they were like afraid for their kids or something. Your children are just going to see a woman. They don't know what the fuck she does for a living. Like
or if they do,
having access to the porn,
or if they do, they already like her. You're not saving them from anything. Like, because she's dressed.
Blonde women with huge knockers, tons. She looks just like
Mar-a-Lago. A Mar-a-Lago woman.
Exactly.
Maybe with a less plastic surgery, but yeah.
It's just so crazy to see because of the, again, even with that tweet, It's like the cognitive dissonance. She's like, if I would have known, it would have been like a religious cult. And I'm like, you're so deep in the forest, you look around and you don't see fucking trees. Like, the call is coming from inside the house, lady. Like,
yeah, no, it's true. But yeah.
So sometimes people are just shit. Sometimes people are just shit, and that's just what they're gonna do.
Yeah,
that's still a thing too.
Yeah, because I mean, as we've talked about, I mean, the Christian right is they want to take all of this away, and like nobody should be voting for these assholes, because especially if you are like a single guy, like they want to take away everything that you like. Like, they want to censor video games, they want to take away your porn, and then they want to treat you as a second-class citizen because you're single. Like,
oh yeah, if you're not out making babies, what are you doing?
That's right. Yeah, and like, just they're against everything who you are. Like, it isn't just so even if you can't fully see why sex workers are, should be protected and supported, like, or that you don't maybe, have a lot of respect for, I don't know, whatever groups you don't like, understand that they're coming for you. They're coming for everybody who is not a, white Christian billionaire. Like, if you're not those things, then you're going to get fucked, and not in a good way.
No, the worst of ways. The worst of ways. Yeah. It just sucks too, because like right now, again, I'm an elder millennial. My generation and younger, like, we are looking at the two options that we looked at the last time we had an election, the two options that we have this time, and we are like, this is what you're giving us? Like, we're not cool with either of these fucking people. I think that a lot of people think that just because you are super anti-Trump, that somehow means you're super pro-Biden. And I am not. Like, I don't think we should have elderly grandpas being the commander-in-chief of this country. And I think a lot of people agree with that, a huge amount of people. But unfortunately, what's happening with the young people too is it's like, I think they're just gonna like sit it out. And it's funny because my friend, and I was like, please don't vote for Trump or whatever. But I was like, I think he said, I don't think I'm going to vote for president in this election. And I was like, well, if you don't vote, you're just voting for Trump. And he's like, really? In this state? And I was like, you have a point, because of the Electoral College. If you live in, I would say, New York, Washington, Oregon, California, and Illinois, you really don't have to. That this will go to Joe Biden. Illinois is going to go to Joe Biden. California, it's the same thing. Like, I will say, in 2016, I was registered to vote in California. I wrote in Bernie Sanders because I knew Hillary Clinton was going to win in California. So my vote wasn't really that important. So I thought I would just make a statement for all the fucking good that did. But but I think that is really broken. That's fucking broken. So I mean, whatever. Like, there's all these issues that are I mean, but I think that sucks about that is that they're totally deactivating in general. It's like when you have an administration that is right now sending billions of dollars to the bad guys of a genocide that's happening. And I don't feel that's a controversial fucking thing to say. There are people who have next to nothing already, and they're being bombed. And so much to say about that. But there's like 20,000 children are dead. Children! I thought you were trying to protect the children. Huh? Wasn't that the big thing? No, protect them against seeing penises and vaginas. Like, when it comes to like bombing them in the streets and like, that's okay. Okay, so
they're not white Christians, so it's okay.
It's fine. They're brown, so nobody fucking gives a shit. And this is, and so anyway, so that's just what my point is, just that, like, how are you going to say vote for the Democrat because you don't want, trans people should be able to exist in public? Well, they have a very good argument saying, I don't want to vote at all because this is happening And it keeps happening. And I don't know, arguably, is it more important to like stop a Holocaust from happening? Like,
well, yeah, but here's the thing: if Trump gets in, he's going to give them permission to use nukes.
I know the thing too is everyone is just like, there's no way I'm voting for Joe Biden because this is happening. And I'm like, do you think that under Trump it would not happen? Like, if you don't vote
It would
for
be even
Biden
worse.
and Trump wins because you didn't vote because you didn't vote, so that was Trump vote, then you think that Trump's going to come along and be like, oh, let's stop sending money to Israel. I promise you he will not.
He will give them more money is what
Yeah.
And like, well, and honestly, like that perspective that you're talking about, and it is true, like a lot of younger people do have that, and it is a fair perspective to have. Like,
totally.
But the reality is the right wing also wants you to think that. And they literally spend millions of dollars to push that message into your brain. And so if you don't like them, then why do you do what they want? And yeah. And like that, and because like, and like, this is literally what they do. Like, I read an article about how like they will literally go and fund fake third-party candidates and be like, yeah, I'm the real progressive, vote for me. And I'm bankrolled by the Republicans. I won't say that. And like, and so like, so it's fine to be frustrated with the Democrats, but if you want to get back at them, vote in the fucking primary. Do that.
Vote down peeking it. This is what I'm like, that's the thing is everybody's like president all the time, always. And it's like, what matters is like, you got to start at the local, you got to do your local government, you got to do your state government, because those are the people that crawl their way up into Congress. And then those are the people that are making decisions on our fucking behalf. Does not matter like what we want. They're still buying a beat. They're still building a fucking trip on the moon.
Yeah, and it is, and like, and this is why I do think that sex workers are so important, because, you know, you guys actually, your own lived experience shows that is instructive to both women and to men. Because,
I agree with that. Like when I started, especially there's more knowledge coming out, and when we learn about how utilizing the real words for parts like really empowers especially children, and it is the lack of explanation and this separation of self from body that we sort of impose on children at a young age, and like not explaining to them about their own body, that we're like, that's your cookie, that's your hoo-ha, whatever the fuck. It's like, no, that's your fucking vulva, and this is your vagina, and you need to know these things so that if people start talking to you about this stuff, you can be like, this is wrong, it makes me uncomfortable. You can set your own bodily boundaries and autonomy. Like, this is healthy. It keeps people from experience. It makes it less likely to experience sexual abuse. And with how fucking rampant that is with children, it's like, it's like, here I am, a porn star. They're trying so desperately to keep me away from children when I have their best intentions at heart. Like, ultimately, I am like, they need to know this about their body. They need to know like what violations are. And when they reach a certain age, like when they're 13, 14, 15, then they should be learning about sex.
Is for them. Like, but their body is for them. It's not for other people.
It's not for God. It's not for the man that will come into your life at some point or whatever. Like,
this is your thing. It's your property, and you should use it to the fullest degree and love it.
And you should, and it's okay to feel pleasure like that. Like, pleasure is not naughty. You know, you shouldn't get worried about getting caught by your parents, like discovering your own pleasure. And it's awkward and uncomfortable, but I think the thing would, like, if your parents discover it, it's kind of like, well, if they walked into your room, it's like, oh, I violated your privacy. Like, I will do better next time. Have that conversation. If it's like they're doing it out in public, it's like, hey, totally love that you're exploring your body, but that is something that we do in private. So when you're in the bathroom or when you're in your bedroom, then you can go explore your body.
But porn is also instructive and helpful for cis men also. Well, that porn really is most people's at least maybe not for a long time, is most people's exposure to same-sex intimacy. Most people don't
intimacy.
see that.
Yeah, no, for sure, definitely.
Like,
and even though we've come a long way, you might see
or
people
even just
holding
the
hands,
concept.
but
But like if you lived in Victorville, California, like you wouldn't know. Even now, I would think like you wouldn't know that many people who were out lesbian or out gay. You just wouldn't. And so
where I grew up was even smaller than Victorville, California. I wasn't the first person who was like holding hands with my girlfriend in high school, but I was probably the second.
Yeah.
My high school was extremely small.
Yeah, for sure. And like porn is basically, so for non-heterosexual people, it is educational in that sense for them. It's getting them to realize there's other people who don't do things that are heterosexual, and you know, and that it's not horrible. Like, and you know, and I wish that it was more of a, because like I feel like there are a lot of bisexual men out there.
Oh, definitely.
There are so many bisexual men, but they're so repressed.
Yes. That is a major issue currently, I believe, for sure.
Yeah, I actually think it's one of the biggest societal problems, because, you know, now the stigma against bisexual women is, you know, it's mostly gone, although people still don't take it seriously, I think.
You know, they don't. It's kind of like the bi invisibility issue in general.
Absolutely.
It's like you're either, you know, a lot of people think, oh yeah, you're just, you know, you're on your way to being gay, and no. You know, or it's like people would be not even like a woman would not even want to hook up with me because I have a male partner. So it's like, oh well, you're not real. And I'm like, look, we're not even trying to I'm not trying to marry you, like, but like, you know, I am genuinely attracted to you very greatly. And it's just like, but because I think they have, you know, a lot of gay women have this just feeling that like you wouldn't really be into it because you're just waiting for the next dick to come along. And it's just, that's so the opposite of me specifically. And that's why I don't really like identify as bisexual, but knowing that I have attractions that have the potential to go all directions. So that's why I identify as queer. But I do see the problem of bi erasure, and I just dislike it when it comes to women. I dislike that it's like not taken seriously. But when it comes to men, it's like it's so repressive, and it's just like rooted in toxic masculinity and like traditional masculinity and like what that means. That and again too, this idea that like when people are misogynistic. When people are homophobic, they are just misogynists in disguise, because it's like they see gay men as being like feminine, and they don't like feminine men, and they don't like feminine men because they don't like femininity, and they feel like femininity belongs in this particular box, and if it doesn't look like that, you know, it's just it's all the same fucking bigotry.
Well, and an expressive feminine man should not exist in that world.
Right. Yes.
He should
mindset.
Stay in the closet.
Yes. If you're a dude who wants to have a dick in your mouth, well, that's an issue for them. And it's like I hate it.
But it is also, I mean, it isn't only misogyny. It's also
of course not.
I mean, it is definitely a fear of their own, you know, homosexual desires. And so like, because like, and it bugs the fuck out of me that like, for instance, because I feel like there's a lot of men, a lot of cis hetero men are totally lost in this world. I feel like that there needs to be a non-toxic Hugh Hefner. That's what there needs to be as a way of modeling positive affirming masculinity,
yes,
and sexuality, affirming male sexuality. That doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. And we got Andrew Tate, we've got, all of these
Joe
fucking
Rogan,
shitheads,
just
Joe
trash.
Rogan, it's trash, and it's harming. Not only is it harming the women and the LGBTQ people in this, it's also harming their own audience. Like they're fucking them up horribly because they're telling them shit that isn't going to work. That
oh my God, that so is not going to work. Like so bad. And the response to this has been this anti-man movement, and not in the sense of like fuck all men, although there is a little bit of that. Like I could say this is what leads to, there's literally something called the 4B movement and the man versus bear argument, and it's because these people are gathering up so many minds of young men, and it's like they're just teaching them to be worse. And so you have women responding by being like, oh cool, I'm actually really happy being single, and I'll just do that then. I'll just be single and I just won't have kids. And then they're watching like these okay, so people are having less kids. It's like, oh, this is because of like all this feminist bullshit. It's like, no, have you looked at the economy lately? Like, who's gonna fucking be able to afford a kid? But also all of you men coming out and like talking about this shit. It's like, who wants that? And then the fertility rates are dropping because there's fucking microplastics in 100% of people's fucking balls, because it's just in our body now, because the fucking deregulation of the food industry and the things that we consume.
Oh man.
I mean,
you
it's
are
just
so, oh God, I love this. I fucking love this.
And so then you got these pundits on Fox News who are like, oh, it's the liberal fucking sex hookers, whatever. And it's like, man, no. And religion isn't going to change any of this shit. The only thing that's going to change this is getting rid of capitalism in the state that we have it in right fucking now.
Oh man.
Go back in time and get rid of.
I am so glad that we are talking to each other. This is so great. I love it. No, you're right. The advice that they're giving to men, it's also totally outward focused as well, because like they're telling young boys, your only goal in life is to fuck women. And it's like, if that's your goal in life, you're never going to have a meaningful relationship, even if you do have sex. And you should actually love yourself and know yourself before you try to go out and like, and like you should like being single, because you get a chance to finally know who you are and to be with yourself. But I think a lot of people, they're afraid of being alone with themselves.
A lot of people are afraid of being alone with themselves. And but like what you just said, that's sort of my advice to people in general anyway, is like people who feel like they're so desperately looking to find a partner, not even just for sex, but like a life partner. And I'm like, and I see a lot of them where it's like, you haven't been alone for 5 fucking minutes. Like you've never not had a boyfriend or whatever the case is, it's just like
roommate.
Like, why would someone want to be with you if you don't even want to be with you? You have to know that you are like someone who's worthy, who has value. And if you can't even see that, like you have to work on yourself first so that you can come to another person and be like, hey, I don't need you to like fill up this hole inside
to complete me.
Yes. Like that's the most toxic fucking thing of the 90s, right? You complete me. It's like, no, I'm complete. And you just like make things even better. We complement. You don't complete me, you complement me, and that's like how I feel with my partner. It's like when we found each other, it was like, it wasn't like I'm missing something and I desperately need you to fill this hole inside of me. It was like, hey, I'm good right now. I'm fucking feeling great. I am looking great. I'm good. So we can see if we want to be together. So it was just a little like dancey at first, but it was ultimately like we fell in love so fast. But that was the thing, is that it was very much like I didn't want us to be having this codependency or something like that. It was like we are both full, whole people, and we're even better when we're together. We just like being with each other, and we lift each other up in these ways. But not that like I needed you because I can't be alone. And like I see that I see that in other people sometimes, and it just kind of makes me like, oh, yeah, I wish you could know that you're worth it. Like,
yeah. Well, and it's also that I think, a lot of people, and this is probably more a thing for cishet men, is that they don't have real friendships either. And so, and so their romantic partner is their only deep friend. If that.
But then they don't even want, like it is, and yet they won't even like deeply engage with that person even. Like, you could just have this sort of picture in your head of this type of Chad or this type of incel or this type of whatever, Andrew Tate motherfucker. And it's just like, man, you haven't had an existential thought in your entire fucking life. That's kind of how I think about it. Like, and it's great. And I do meet people like that sometimes. And I'm just like, man, you never once like thought about those big picture things, like big, like not even big picture, like I don't know why
just
are
thought
you
about
here?
something
like,
other than your job and what's on the
just like the deep it's
like if those are the only things you think about, then you really gotta change your mindset. But
I'd encourage it.
Well, and like, but I mean, and historically, I mean, that is also a thing that sex workers have done. That in many cases, because like before therapy was even a thing, and even now that it is, like a lot of people will not go to a therapist either because they don't want to do it, or it just never even enters the picture, or their religion tells them they shouldn't do it. And so that is why, like people in Hollywood sometimes mock the idea of the stripper with the heart of gold story. Like they think of it as a cliche, but in a lot of ways, it actually is. That's how a lot of sex workers are for their clients, because without them, they would have no, external significant thoughts. They wouldn't experience physical touch.
Oh yes, the physical touch thing. Like I've understood that since I was a stripper. Like stripping was the first, just about the first sex work thing that I like really, really did. And I've thought a lot the first couple years, and I came to really understand like that. I mean, I had a lot of experiences where it was just like I could feel that this person needed this from me so badly and does not get it anywhere else in their life. And that's a devastating thing. And
it is,
but it's just
tragic for that person.
Yeah. And not only that, I mean, I've had experiences where it was just like, I would say I learned a lot about chemistry from giving lap dances at the strip club, and some people you're giving a dance to and they're just kind of like, yeah, hot chick. But then other people, it's just like you feel total strangers, never saw them again. But like there's a couple of clients that stand out in my mind that it was, and this is fucking like more than 15 years ago. But I still remember these particular moments where I was like, he kept getting dances and we were just like, making eye contact, and there was just this heavy chemistry going between us. And I mean, all this stuff, like sex work opened my mind and my eyes to so many different things. Like I feel that I used to be like anti-prostitution, when I was like 17, 18. I was just raised like where my mom would talk about that kind of stuff and be like, well, that's bad or whatever. But I don't think she even really understood why. It was just that era of feminism from the time that she came up in. And just through doing the sex work, everything just started opening up. And I was just like, why is that bad? Like, if someone is willing, if someone is like, hey, I offer this service, and someone else is like, I really need that service and I will give you money for it, whose business is it? Like, it's not the government's business. It's nobody. Like, it's just that, like, what makes it illegal? Two people can fuck whenever they want, but now it's illegal because I left some money on the counter. Like, blows my mind to this fucking day. I am just so mind blown. And it's almost like, man, we're so far away from even being able to address that topic. It's like, because we are on the porn thing now, and the porn thing has just kind of always been like, well, we've got the Constitution, so you can't tell these people that they can't make, and that these other people they can't consume. You can't do that. But we're getting closer to them like fucking doing it, and the way they're doing it is they're going like around the Constitution. They're skirting the issue by going to the
they're making it about children also,
and they're doing that, but we all know that, right? It's like, it's always they pick up the children and they hold them out as like a fucking sword and shield, as like, we're going into battle on their behalf. And it's like, that's the parents' business. Like, I saw this tweet that I retweeted a little while ago that was like, you should be fucking offended that the government and these lobbyists, religious groups and stuff are telling you that you don't know how to protect your child from stuff online that you don't want them to see. That's your job. That's not anybody else's job. Like, you should be fucking offended by that. And I'm like, good point.
And like, one of the other things that it can teach them is that bodies are different, and that there are so many different ones out there, and and many people can be beautiful, and you yourself could be beautiful also if you
right.
And it's something that ultimately the whole right-wing religious hatred of porn and sex work, it's that women are empowered and have agency, but it's also that men learn that they don't have to hate themselves and feel dead inside. Those, I think, are, to me, why they hate it so much.
And I think those are major threats to their institutions of power. And influence.
Because ultimately, I mean, and I get that they want people to feel like that everything sucks and it can never get better. And
unless you
are not worth anything. That you are not worth a goddamn thing. And you shouldn't try to band together with someone else to improve your life, because that's not possible. Progress is not possible. Having something better is not possible. Being a better person, that's not possible. You are shit, and you should just accept it.
That's why I think that religion for children, I think that's abuse, like straight up abuse. Like, even without the sexual abuse, take that to the side for a second. Just telling a child who's just becoming aware that you were born awful, so you're already broken and bad just because you exist. But don't worry, there's a way to fix it. If you just, say the magic word, and then follow this book chock full of contradicting rules, then you'll be worthy enough and valuable enough to, like, whatever. And it's just that thing where it's marketing, really. Like, religion is just master of marketing, because it's like, convince people they have this problem, and then provide the only solution to that problem.
And then also prevent any sort of accountability of your solution. So in your case, though, when did you kind of have that realization? Like, what was your background in religion?
So for me, like, it wasn't really it wasn't oppressed upon me in this terrible way. So I am extremely blessed and lucky that I have parents that were just, they were English teachers. So, they went to college at Humboldt State University. I was born in Arcata, California, which I guess if people don't really know, that is super duper hippie college. And Humboldt State University,
Northern California.
It's in northern, like super far Northern California, like 6 hours north of San Francisco, in the redwood forest, and that's where all the best weed in the world comes from. Like it's just hippie, but like you could literally go there anytime. I could go there right now, and there'd be some hippies in the plaza wearing their, Jerry Garcia pants. Or just, what you could get, what you get there. And anyway,
but there are evangelicals there too, right? There?
But there are some conservatives there too, because you just have this extreme kind of, because you'll have people that are really big on guns, and because it's also very rural. So even though there is this like education institution and a lot of the more hippie mindset, at least how things are now, that mindset, that sort of naturalistic path, the essential oil type stuff, that can also slide right into the MAGA.
Yeah, it's called pastel QAnon is what people call it. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So like the conspiracy theory stuff and all that. But let me not get too off topic here. So what I will say is that when my dad got a job full-time teaching in Southern California, and so we moved down there when I was like 5.5, and that was the desert, and that was a totally different lifestyle, totally different place. And there's lots of churches. So I will say there's this moment. I remember it was like first grade, and a kid had asked me, "What religion are you?" And I was kind of like, "I don't know." So I think I'd been made aware of the God concept. I know my parents were in a church when I was born, but I think that was a lot for sort of the community support aspect of it. And then moved to Southern California, and so I went home and I said, "Mom, what religion am I?" And she said, "Well, you're Christian." And I was like, "Okay." So I just went, and that's what I told the kid. And now, like, my mom says I'm Christian. That's what we are. Okay, like no big deal. We're kids. Like we're not really like thinking a lot about that. And then over the years, like I remember my mom taking us to a particular church one time, and then there was like a youth or Sunday school aspect to it. Yeah, because I was little. So, and that was interesting and kind of weird. And then I'd stay the night at friends' houses, and the next day would be their time to go to church. So I was like, is it cool if I go to this Catholic church with my friends? Because we stayed over on Saturday night. Like now they're all going to church. Can I go? And she's like, well, yeah, you can go. It was not, they were not, neither of my parents ever were like, no, you can't hear about these other ideas. They never enforced this Christian aspect on me either. So I went and tried a couple times at the Catholic church, and saw, honestly, like there's at least one sermon that I remember being really positive and probably had some sort of influence on the way I think about life and stuff. But and then from there, but I didn't like get super into it. And then another friend was like going to this thing called Awanas, which was more like youth group, but I was like maybe 11, 12, 13 at the time. And so it was like the booklet you got, and you had all these shits you had to memorize. Like they wanted you to memorize all the books of the people. Like all this stuff was like, why? Yeah. But so this is where we're getting closer to sort of like when things start brewing for me. And there was this one night, and they set up the place where we would hold this as an airplane. Like we were going in the airport. We got a ticket to get on the plane. And we sit down on the plane, and they're like, the movie we're watching on the plane ride tonight, it was fucking Left Behind. And
who had the Kirk Cameron one, right?
I'm not sure if it was before Kirk Cameron did his version. I think there's been several, but we are talking like,
Kirk Cameron is the original one, though.
95. It could be.
I think they wrote that down.
I don't remember a shit ton about it, but like I do remember that it was terrifying. And I was just too young at the
Wait,
time.
how old were you
kind of-
again? Yeah. How old were you?
Probably 12 when this happened.
Yeah.
And
And that's child abuse right there.
I agree. Yes. They show
Yeah.
you this terrifying thing and they say, when you die, or when the rapture comes, because that's what the movie's more about, the rapture. And so it showed this mom waking up and she can't find her kids. So she's freaking out. Like her kids have been kidnapped or whatever. And she goes outside and everyone's
Kidnapped by
like,
God.
yes. But it's shown in this terrifying way, like where as though it was a person that came and took them. And that was really scary. And then they're like, I guess at the airport in heaven or whatever the fuck it is. And it's like, well, yeah, we love them, but like they didn't believe, so they don't get to be here and we don't get to be together now. And oh my God. And I was just like, is that what it's like? Oh fuck. Like I don't want to be without my mom and dad when we die and go to heaven, or when the idea of the rapture is absolutely ludicrous to me. But I sit down in my room by myself and I pray and I say, yes, Lord. They tell you, they give you instructions. This is what you need to say.
A script. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a script. And so I sat down and I said those things and I manifested this feeling in my heart, and I like shed a tear even. It was so, funny because it was almost like performative, but I was alone and I did all of that. And it's just interesting because it was almost like performative in a sense, even though I was alone in my room. But
Make it till you make it. That's really what they tell you.
And and I like that for a lot of other aspects of life.
No, it is ironic. Yeah.
Yeah. But so to me, that was like this big moving thing. And I think even at that point, my mom had already started kind of being like, I'm not sure about this religion stuff to a certain extent. And then the other thing is that I had always been taught that when it does come to God, God is love. That God is love, and I was never taught about this sort of judgment stuff, and that, you should be fearful of God and that he's all about punishment. Like that was definitely not the attitude that my parents were trying to instill in us at all. Yeah. So then anyways, that's just to tell you that like they used fear to manipulate my very young mind towards this thing that they wanted me to do. And another element, like I remember being at that Awana's and it was this couple they're young couple and they were talking about the sex before marriage thing. And they're like, they were engaged. And I was like, and this was me fucking 12. I was like, you guys you've never had sex. You've never even kissed, because that's the thing, right? Like you cannot even make out. You cannot do any of that shit. And I was like, what's it going to be like when you have your wedding night? Don't you think that'll be out? But they were just so deep in with, drinking the Kool-Aid. So then I joined this after school club, which we had on campus at the time, because the Satanic Temple didn't exist yet to come and say, well, we also have a Satan club. So I was doing this. It was called the Alpha and Omega Club. And these are the two things that really pushed me to the change. Like, of course, I've always been thinking about.
Was this still middle school?
Yep. So now I'm 13. So I'm 13. I'm in 8th grade. Ever since I was a kid, like I remember the first time my babysitter was like, I don't believe in God. Like, that's bullshit. And I was like, what? I thought that was so interesting. And she was just kind of like, what is, she was just explaining things to me in a rational way that made sense. And I was like, okay, but like, I still believe in God. So, but I think it is always just like I was always taught how to think, not what to think. I'll put it that way. And so first thing that happened, we have a little election in our little Alpha Omega group that had maybe 5, maybe like 8 on a good day. And
you get a hierarchy started in.
Yeah. So we had to have an election. Yeah. I went up there. I was like, well, I'm going to run for president of this club. So I went up and I was just like, to me, God is love. And it's about expressing that love. And I think we need to find all these ways to like really show God's love and like live in this and yada, yada, yada. Right. And my best friend, who was my best friend for years, like, love her till the end of the days. And also the smartest person I know that is still very Christian. And I always fantasize about like talking to her about that stuff. But now we're 40. I think we're just kind of like, let it lie. But anyways, she gets up there and she's like, my thing is that I fear God. And her whole feel was like the righteousness and the fear and the like, all that type of, like, her vibe was opposite of mine. And I was like, wow, I got this in the bag, right? And no, I lost and she won. So that was a big thing for me where I was like, whoa, what? Okay, that's fine. We go to the club and several weeks are going by or whatever. Okay, so someone had brought in this game. We would play this game. I think it was some kind of a card game. And the cards have these little like moral conundrums on them. And I mean, the point is to think think about it through the lens of Christianity. It's like a Jesus game, right? And so that each little conundrum it's meant to stimulate conversation about like what you would do through the lens of your faith or whatever. And so the card was your friend is having a sleepover. And I can't remember exactly the scenario, but it was something along these lines. Your friend's having a sleepover, but she has a sister who's a homosexual. Like, do you go to the sleepover? It was something like along those lines where it's like there's a homosexual involved, and that's like what we're fucking talking about here. And I remember,
should you be in the house with a homosexual?
I mean, essentially, yes. And I remember when I was in first grade when I heard some kids say like, "You're gay," and I was like, "What the fuck is that?" And I went home and I said like, "What is gay?" Mom told me what gay was, and she's like, "But people are different, and there's nothing wrong with being different, you know?" So it was always, that was the thing. And the people, like the other people in the group were like starting to debate about it. And I was like, what is going on here? Like, Jesus calls us to love people, right? And not to judge. So why would we judge? Can we just go to the fucking party? Like, I said we just go to the party.
They hung out with prostitutes, for God's sake.
All of it.
They were his friends.
And so, and at that moment, it's so convoluted because the teacher, you know, you have an after school club, there has to be a teacher who is called the advisor. And especially when it's a religious club, the advisor has to sit in that chair and keep their mouth fucking shut and let the students do the club. Like, this isn't like a teacher-led club because it's religious, right? So her job was to sit there and let us fucking have this discussion. I was already getting like really fired up, and I was just kind of like getting very frustrated by what was being said. And she pipes up back there and she says, okay, well, because I knew her personally. That's the other thing. Like, so my parents were teachers, very small community. She lived down the street from me. I was friends with her daughter. Like we always, like, I knew her since I was young. And I knew she was super duper fucking religious. And so she pipes up and she goes, well, it does say in the Bible that homosexuality is a sin. And I gotta be honest with you, she might have gone on to say any number of kind or nice thing, but I will never know because I grabbed my backpack and I fucking stormed out of that classroom and let the door slam behind me. And that is always the moment that I look at as like me really recognizing the hypocrisy, incongruity of beliefs, the fact that you can all say you're Christian, but you all have different beliefs. You cherry pick the things that you want that apply to your personal life or your personal way you want to live your life, to vilify other people. And that was just like the beginning of a cascade, right? It was like the first domino falling, kind of. So after that, it was just, I'm thinking about this stuff so much. I'm thinking about, why do I try to dress like the other people at school? I was just thinking about, why do I even believe in this stuff? I was thinking, when I was born into the world, if as I'm developing consciousness, someone told me that a plate of flying spaghetti created the universe and he watches over me, this flying spaghetti, and da 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 da, that's what I would believe. And I think about all the other religions all around the world and how those people were each born and they were each told that what truth was. And so then they believed that was the truth. And so then I was just like, well, what the fuck is true at all? And like, how is any of this? How can I trust anything? And so there was a good 2 years of a lot of just really reflecting on all of this major big stuff. Like I said earlier, like having all of these big existential thoughts and ideas running around in my head. And then I found the music of Marilyn Manson and 9 Inch Nails and that song Terrible Lie and all that stuff. And then I met other people. I got to high school and I was like, I'm meeting different kinds of people. And I met a girl and she dressed super fucking goth. And I was so fascinated by it. And her general attitude of like not caring what other people think. And she kind of introduced me to the Marilyn Manson stuff. And then I was like really obsessed with watching that stuff and the things that he had to say. So this girl, she went on to, she was like the first, my first real relationship, like the first person I really was in love with. And so we dated for a short time in high school. And then Marilyn Manson. And I would say these were two like key figures that I think really helped shape me into the person that I am today. I mean, we're going back, so long.
Well,
but that was a good baseline for me to be like, why am I so concerned? Not only with like what other people are thinking about reality, but like with what other people think of me. Like, well, it's not, I love this phrase, like what other people think of me isn't any of my business. Unless it's good.
Yeah, absolutely.
But you know what I mean? It's like, it's still a good thing. And then like doing the job that I do now and hearing from such a wide variety of people on a daily basis for the past 20 years of doing this work, it's really shown me how many people are paralyzed by worrying about what other people think, that they don't live their truth. They don't live their life authentically. They don't live their life with the joy of their own expression.
Or even knowing who they are.
Yeah. Or their own even adventures. Like, man, I wish I could go do XYZ. And I'm like, what the fuck is holding you back? Like, you can't.
Well, you could. Yeah.
Yeah. But they're just crippled by this stuff.
Yeah. So can I just step back a little bit in the story though? So you, I mean, for people who are familiar with your work and who you are, like, you do identify as queer and you are attracted to men and women. Like,
and
so, I mean,
non-binary people and
yeah. And so but like, did you have that sense when you heard the teacher say that, homosexuality is a sin? Had you had that sense about yourself by that?
Oh, okay. So yes, I had, but not in the sense that like I identified as that person yet at that time. I think it was around that time that I was around 13 that I was really starting to be like, I'm bisexual. That's how I identified at the time. But it didn't really sink in like, no, I like girls too. I have crushes on girls too. I think I was in 9th grade the first time I made out with a girl and I was like, yep, I want this, so I think I wasn't really like when I got up and walked out of that classroom, it wasn't because I was personally offended from my own queerness. It was that I was offended for an entire, of course, I wouldn't have had this language at the time, but an entire marginalized group of people who I viewed as no different than myself, and not because of the sexuality aspect, just because of the humanity aspect, and just like the way that I was raised. So I wasn't, so I wasn't like pissed off for myself. I was just pissed off that in this fucking classroom, this teacher was trying to remind students that being gay was a sin in the eyes of God or whatever. And I was just like, this is not okay. Like, I just viscerally knew that that was not okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Like that's getting people to not see that is really one of the core control mechanisms for this authoritarian, ideology that we're talking about. Because the moment that you see that people who are different than you are also the same as you.
Oh, yes.
Then then you can't, it's impossible to hate them after that. Getting men to see that women are people too, and getting, straight people to see that, non-straight people are people, and the transgender people are people.
Yes,
and,
God.
It's about removing our humanity, our shared sense of humanity.
Yes. Finding the ways to separate us, whether it's up and down, whether it's left and right, red and blue. Yeah. Yeah. And that's the thing, is like, it is up versus down, but everybody's all caught up in this left versus right. And they're not. And I'm like, if we could just realize that it's up, that we need to be fucking using our forces again. But when we talk about like what you just said, even about getting, people to essentially like hate each other. And even when I think right now about people that I just like disagree with so deeply on such a deep level, like when I think about Donald Trump, for example, I don't even think of it. I think of it kind of as a thing that just like makes me a little ill, and it makes me just upset to know that people can fall for such a just so clearly an emperor and no clothing type of situation, right? But it's not, I don't feel hatred towards it. I don't feel hate towards Donald Trump, towards Charlie Kirk, like towards Andrew Tate, Joe Rogan, whatever. I hate the ideologies they espouse, but I don't hate them as people. I think they're just like very, very misguided people that got almost their minds taken advantage of. But and so I think that it's, as you say, that like if we could just recognize each other's humanities, that's like a really good first step. But it's frustrating that like very much feels like their side isn't willing to see that. But on a deeper level than just talking about sides, like I have done some of the most powerful hallucinogenics that you can have access to on this planet. And it was made very clear to me that like, and so you can take this with whatever grain of salt you want to, but through my own lens, like this seems very obvious, and I see it all the time. I mean, I see this shit all the time, that just like people see Jesus all the time. I get it. It's about getting that oneness, that non-duality. But it was basically like, we are all the same thing. We are like all of this, not just you and me, not just people, not just animals, not just this desk or whatever. It's just like, it's all, there's no separation. And we're here having this, this little fucking experience of being alive in this way. And so I remember so I've done it twice now, 2 separate times. And obviously the second time it's going to be a lot different than the first time. And after I came out, the first time when I came back, I was laughing hysterically because being alive is just so fucking ridiculous. But then the second time when I came back, I cried. And I wasn't crying because of what I had been through. I was weeping because what I said over and over was, if only they knew. if only everybody knew what it all really was, we would not have all of this like hate. It sounds so trite trying to use the words to say it, right? It sounds very cliche and very hippie-ish, but it's like things wouldn't be this way. It just
Well, yeah, and well, look, you shouldn't feel bad about that, about feeling that way, because you're right about that. Because like everybody wants to be seen, but most people don't want to be known, and so like, and that's the thing, is that if you can get to the if everyone could get to the point where they want to be known to themselves and to others, like that's what we need, is for people to have that sense of that, that we are here all together, and that's what we need. And
we come from the same stuff. We'll go back. So
yeah, and like, and that is why I do. I mean, that is another reason why that I am trying to sort of reconfigure my career, because like I'm by trade a political writer and a pollster, and TV news producer, but those are not the answers we need right now. And like this is like, and as part of my personal journey, like I have come to realize that adult entertainers and sex workers, you guys are actually some of the most important people in the world right now. And I really mean that. I'm not just, saying that to be nice to you. I really fucking
nice to hear, but I know what you mean. Like, I know what you mean. Most
because like
live our lives
like,
very honest
because
way.
It is the only profession out there that everybody knows about, and everybody uses, but is also hated at the same time.
Oh yes, and they don't want to talk about it. And and it's funny too, because like a lot of like, especially rad femmes, radical feminists, and they'll be just like, you're exploiting yourself. So there's that, where it's like, oh, that's having a job. That's what having a job is. So get that right first, and then they'll be like, you are objectifying yourself, and I'm like, you are the one who is dehumanizing me. Like, you are the one who is saying that I don't have the choice to make for myself to portray myself as an object if I so desire. To use my and then also
you're the one that made that choice, so therefore you can't be the object. Like, nobody did that to you. You did that.
Exactly. And the other thing is like they say, like, it's teaching men to dehumanize you or whatever the fuck like that. And I'm just like, you are the one doing the dehumanizing here. And this is something that's really interesting, is like, there's been some studies on whether or not porn makes men think less of women, like think of women in a more misogynistic ways. They interviewed a bunch of men who watch porn, like on Pornhub and stuff. And then they interviewed a bunch of men who went to AVN. So AVN being it's the awards show, but it's the convention leading up to the awards show every January.
Formerly Adult Video News, for those people.
Which it'll always be called AVN. And even though it stands for Adult Video News, it's so outdated, but yes. And the difference being that one side is just sort of casual porn watcher, doesn't take it seriously really, and just uses it to like masturbate and get on with their fucking lives, versus people who invest their time, who become like attached to particular performers, seek out their work, and then like patronize their websites and stuff like that, or they follow the particular brands or companies that they like, the work that comes from them. And what they found is that so the casual watchers tend to see women or view women in these more misogynistic ways. They, like, when they were asked these questions, sort of questions like, do you think we should ever have a woman president? Their answer would be no. But then when they interview these people who actually sort of invest in us as people, they were like, yes, of course, why couldn't a woman be president? Like all their views were more humanizing of us. And I can tell you that just from my personal experience. Like when I go to an event like AVN, and let's say I'm sitting at a booth and I've got pictures to sign, or even if I don't, it's like people can come up and take pictures with me and they can interact with me in person, face to face. I have been told the most amazing things. I have been told that I helped people, that I inspire people to live their truth more. I've been told that, me and my wife my wife and I were having some difficulties, and just sort of we learned to be more intimate together from watching your work and like paying attention to what you say and the things you talk about and the things you are in your interviews and on your on Twitter and places like this. And so it's like when those people come up to me and they're expressing their admiration for me as a person, they are humanizing me. And I'm humanizing them. I'm not like, oh, this is just a fan. It's like, this is a person who is telling me that my work is meaningful to them. And that is meaningful to me. So, like, I think that's huge. And I think it is that it's almost, they respect women on a level that I think the casual viewer kind of dismisses. And I think that the narrative focuses on things that are just demonstrably false.
Yeah. No, it's true. And like, and you've talked about this on your own podcast, somewhat about how that, you feel like that, having somebody who is straight when they watch same-sex porn of the opposite sex, that it helps them have a better appreciation for the opposite sex, in like what they want out of intimacy and who they are, and and like, and you would, I mean, like you had talked about that with Anna Fox, like in terms of like what, like how women or how men should learn, to perform oral sex. Like don't learn it from a straight a guy girl video.
No, don't watch hetero porn the way guys do Christian hetero porn. It's ghastly.
But it's also and yet like, so it not only gives you gives a straight person a better sense of the opposite sex, because like I know a number of women, like the only porn they watch is gay porn. That's what they like.
Lesbians like watching gay male porn. And
okay, well, I mean the ones I'm saying are straight, but okay,
it could be that too. I mean, for sure,
you could do that too, yeah.
But like my theory behind that is that it has to do with the genuine attraction and passion. And in a lot of straight porn, they're just kind of like, I mean, I've watched a film, I've filmed it. I don't do boy girl porn with anybody except my partner, but there's some scenes where they're very connected and it's great, but I feel like that's more rare. What you're normally seeing is a very paint by numbers scene happening. We need to get a few minutes in this position, a few minutes in this position, a few minutes in that position, and then everybody can go home, and I just think that that's not what women want to see. So whether it's lesbians or straight women watching it, they're watching the gay porn because they're like, these two human beings are actually really fucking hot for each other. And like, if that's what I want to see in porn. And so there's actually like this little thing that I'm kind of proud of, even though it was a very, very long time ago at this point, but Cosmopolitan magazine wrote this article, and it was just for their online magazine, but it was called The Straight Girl Appeal of Lesbian Porn. And the way that, when you're opening an article, a great way of doing that is sort of telling a little story. And so the article opens talking about this girl who she lays down in her bed and she picks up her phone and she's scrolling through porn as she's scrolling through lesbian porn, and she stops on this dark-haired beauty with a big butt, and the name is Sinn Sage. And I was like, what? I literally like mentioned my work in this article, and that she picked me because because fucking I make really good lesbian porn, but because it's a similar thing. that desire that like when I approach a scene, I'm looking in my body, like I want this girl, and I go based through that. And so what the girl who was watching the porn said is she's like, when I watch this type of porn, I can put myself in either position. So in the one direction, I'm getting my pussy eaten, and the one direction I'm getting my pussy tripped on, in the other direction, I'm still the one getting my pussy eaten, by someone who looks like they really want to be fucking eating my pussy. And if that's what we do when we watch porn, sometimes it's like we would put ourselves into that position to fulfill the fantasy of good feeling. Then that makes sense. You'll start to see why, even though like I identify with my dick, my psychic dick, but like a feminine person who maybe doesn't identify with their psychic dick would watch gay porn, but still just being like, maybe I don't put myself in the position of being a man, but I put myself in the position of being desired in the way that these two men are actually desiring each other, and having that level of passion. And I feel like that's something that's just kind of missing from a lot of people's sex lives, is that that passion. That's what they're seeking when they're watching porn. I mean, and that was something that, just again, like coming up in the porn, and that I knew what I liked and what I wanted. And so even though it wasn't with a guy, but it was like my early days, I would do more bottoming. And now it's like, no, I am the top. But and I would do fetish scenes where I wanted to get hit with the flogger on my back. A lot of times I wanted to feel that, or I wanted someone to make me eat their ass or whatever. Like I liked that. And so even though it was something that was definitely, this was the word degrading. Like people are like, oh, you're degrading yourself. And I'm like, sometimes I want to feel degraded. It makes me horny. Like sometimes I want that. And are you telling me that I shouldn't have what I want? Like I want, you know what I mean? And so that aspect of it, it's just important to remember that like when you do watch porn and you're looking at it and you're like, oh no, I'm like worried about this girl, she's really being degraded right now. Just remember that girl was probably like, oh fuck yeah, today I get to go to work and be degraded and get paid for it. I am so stoked about this. And so while there's definitely stuff happening where it's like there's so much, we talk about this as though it's like there's some shadowy cabal of pornographers who are like, come on, kid, don't you want to fucking be a star? Like that's not how things are really. And there's so much economic reason. So it would be nice if everybody did their job just because they loved it. But that's totally unrealistic in the current structure of capitalism that we live under. And so, and so it's like, sometimes there is economic coercion to do a porn scene, and but that is still a choice that person is making, because they're like, I do want that paycheck because it's gonna help me live. And so,
and is it more degrading than, going and taking a minimum wage job and working that for 6 months? Is that?
Is
6 months better morally?
Like, and I would argue that no, it's not. And and this is the thing too, I don't ever want to talk about people's jobs in a sense of that, like working at Walmart is degrading. Like, I don't think that it's working at Walmart or working at McDonald's or cleaning toilets. Like,
there's nothing wrong with it.
The work is not degrading. Yeah. But what is degrading is that it is so fucking devalued, that it is like, you doing this for an hour is worth less than the hamburger at this fucking store. An hour of your life. Like, what is degrading is that people's lives are so devalued that an hour of their life is worth $7 fucking dollars. Like, it just, and then to people, look at that shit. All these sex trafficking savior companies, like 9.5 out of 10 of them are just taking those profits and building the company and paying for lobbyists who are going to destroy porn in this country. they are not actually providing tangible help to people who want to get out of the business. They hand them $300. If someone's been arrested for working on the street or something, they'll, rather than go to jail, maybe they'll be like, oh, you can go here. They'll give them $300 and say, like, good luck. They still don't have housing. They still don't have work. Like, so it's just.
That's not fixing the underlying reason that, if they didn't want to do it. Like, maybe they wanted to do it. Like, you don't even know.
Totally. But that's the other thing is, like,
why they did it.
We all have a price for pretty much everything. So it's like, I will say that, I don't know. I was about to use anal, but I don't think I could do it even if it was $1 million. But like, let's just say that it is something like, how much for me to take a shit on someone's chest. I don't want to do that. I don't want to fucking do that. I have zero interest in doing that. But do I have a fucking price? Yeah, I got a price. But I'm just making an overall point about like economics, about capitalism, about the reasons why we do anything that we do, about labor, the way we look at labor, the way we look, like, so when we talk about sex work / erotic labor, it's like, for some reason, this work so moralized by people who have very particular set of morals, when no other labor is really moralized in that way. I mean, fuck, man, when I call my health insurance company and I talk to these people, it's like, I know that they're just working a job trying to get their fucking bills paid. But I'm like, how can you work for this company? Because this shit is evil. Like, and it's like, because they also have to pay a mortgage or feed themselves or have a roof over their head. And so to judge particular jobs as somehow being more morally terrible.
Unless you work for Donald Trump. Probably.
I mean, yes, that's a job that I would say morally, like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, this is bad. In the same ways, but I would say too that, well, everything is gray area. Nothing is black and white. And we try to put this black and white moral lens over literally fucking everything. And it just, when we do that, it destroys people. It destroys a lot of lives. It hides them away. It's really problematic.
Yeah. But sometimes you have to draw the line, like doing a scene with Brandi Love. Well,
yep, gotta draw the long lines, gotta do that.
Yes. All right. Well, you know what? This has been so awesome. Can we I feel like I would be remiss if I didn't ask you about AI and what you think about AI.
Oh, sure.
Because, I think obviously everybody is against, deep fake, unconsensual AI. And thankfully, there are now some laws that are being passed against that to make that a crime. And it needs to be a crime. It needs to be a crime. But, like, aside from that, so I wanted to state that up front, just in case there's no ambiguity for us here in that regard. So, but like, what about this whole idea that, a lot of the studios, because this was a point of contention in the actors strike that was just a few months ago, was like, actors were like, wait a second, you're going to scan my whole body and then use me forever. And I don't get paid for it. Is that going to happen in porn? What do you think?
I know for a fact it's going to happen in porn. And I've already gotten offers. They'll pay you X amount to scan your body. And I was like, I would fucking never. Like, no. And the crazy thing is, so this year at AVN, at the actual awards show ceremony, they always do these little breaks and skits in between, this is like any other awards show. And one of the things, like the lights went down and they show like a little thing, a little video that they've made, and it is for AI porn. And it was one of those things, literally everyone in the audience, like this is what we do for a living. And everyone was just like, the fuck? Do you think we're on board? Like, this is how we make a living. Like, and if AI is taking over, what are we gonna do? It's interesting. I mean, there are ways that AI can be useful for us as creators, but those ways are more about like marketing and writing descriptions or just like stuff like that. Where
face filters are one form.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, but I'm sorry, I don't want to.
We're not using any of those here. Not today. No, I mean, and to be honest, like, do I use the face filters? Yeah, I do. Not every time when I take a picture, because like it's also a lot of work to like put it on every single fucking picture. But but yeah, like especially with a live thing or whatever, if there's an option, I'm gonna take it. But I do still think it's bad. I think it's really bad for culture and society. Again, because we want to be the things that we see when we talk about media. Just like growing up in the 90s and the whole being away the culture of you gotta be as skinny as you could possibly be. It does not matter health, none of that. Like it's all about being skinny. Watching my mom constantly, never, and to this fucking day, like still talk about her weight, obsess over it, obsess over the things she eats, like, and I just like that's so fucking toxic. And now it's like faces, it like you can't just have a human face, and it's just bad. It's just yeah. And I'm caught up in it too. Like I'm looking into getting like eyelid surgery, and like maybe I will get a shot of Botox here after all, even though I said I will never do this. It's just because I am a part of this culture. I live in it. I'm on camera. I will start to look like the weird one of not doing that. And I don't know. It's so many things. Like I like to sit here and feel like I'm above it somehow, but I'm fucking in it. So, and I think, yeah, but is this all just inevitable anyways? I don't know. So the thing with the AI, right? It's like, it's one of those things about progress, right? There's two different kinds of progress. There's like industrial progress, right? And then there's like progress, like what we talk about, where it's like we're progressives because we think people should, I don't know, have rights. So, and I think when it comes to this like industrial or technological progress, that is a wheel that will move forward and cannot be stopped. So I think that I saw this really great like tweet that was like, I wanted AI to do the dishes and the laundry. This was the promise kind of future technology, right? Especially like in the post-war era and stuff. The robot does the dishes and the laundry and cooks the meals so that you can write poetry and paint pictures and make art or play in a field or whatever, right? But with the system of capitalism the way that it is, you are devalued if you are not, you're dehumanized if you are not working for the machine. And so what's happening instead is the opposite of that. The AI is now making the art and writing the scripts and making the paintings. And we still have to fucking sweep floors and clean toilets. And so that's when I think about the promise of AI, it's just more money for the billionaires, us having less access to even be able to do jobs to make an income. And I just see this future world where it's like, a lot of Black Mirror episodes for sure. But remember I watched this movie, now I can't think of the fucking name of it, but it has Bruce Willis. It's called Looper. And the movie is about whatever, like all kinds of shit. But it's in this future world, right? And in this future world, you have everybody living on the street, and then a few people in high-rise fucking mansions, and that is all of society. And a couple people that can live out on farms in the middle of nowhere. And the first time I saw that scene of their streets, I was like, oh, that's us. That's our future. That's probably like 40 years away. Like unless something changes.
Yeah.
I'm sure if we're heading that direction, but when we talk about AI in this sense of things, like I don't see it as like a hopeful future. And when it comes to AI and adult, the same idea. Like I don't think it's good. Don't like.
All right. Well, I think that's you make a lot of great points there. So this has been a lot of fun. And for people who want to keep up with what you're doing, what's your recommendations for them?
Yeah, I have a million different things. So rather than sit here and list them all off, I'm going to say Sinn-Sage.com. You spell sin with 2 N's. So SINN-SAGE.com. And from that website, you can find all of my social medias where you should definitely follow me. And you can find all the places where I sell my wares, and you can find all the information about my podcast. And I do college speaking engagements. So if you work for a school or any sort of thing where you'd like to bring me in for any reason to talk about these issues, you can find that information there as well. So yeah, Sinn-Sage.com.
Okay. Well, and you should plug your podcast name. We've talked about it at length here. We should at least say the name. Come on.
The name. So my podcast is called Sage Advice with Sinn Sage. And I do have a sex worker on every week, or someone related to the sex industry. We have a nice interview, and we get real deep on some of this type of stuff we were talking about today. And then at the end of the episode, I have two advice questions that my guest and I answer that have been emailed in, and they are related to sex, relationships, porn. If you have any questions about porn, any questions about sex work, we love to answer it. And yeah, that's my podcast.
It is, and it's worth checking out. I recommend people do that. So, all right. Well, awesome. Yeah. So that is the program for today. I appreciate everybody joining us for the discussion. And you can always get more if you go to theoryofchange.show. You can get the video, audio, and transcript of all the episodes. And if you're a paid subscribing member, you have unlimited access to the archives. Thank you very much also for your support. And please do also check out flux.community, where you can get this show and a number of articles and my other podcast, Doom Scroll, which I invite you to check out as well. So that's it for this one. I will see you later.